What's going on? This is Trevor with the Action Item Podcast. I have Leo here.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back.
And last week we talked, our action item that we left you guys with was to do a SWOT analysis. And if you didn't see that video, I will put it right there. But I was curious if anyone who did watch it got any value from their SWOT analysis. What did they learn from their business? Was there anything that you learned that you were surprised by? And if you did, comment below. Let us know. I'm going to hand it over to Leo, let him talk about what today's episode is going to be about.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks, Trevor. So if you guys have been listening in on the podcast, and if you haven't, I definitely highly encourage you to check out some of our previous episodes. We started off by talking about the major reasons why most businesses fail, most startups, small businesses fail in the U.S. And so we started, I think, our inaugural episode with kind of like right? You need to kind of look at yourself for a second and kind of, step out of the way. And then during our last episode, we talked about market positioning, and that's where the SWOT analysis came in. So for today's episode, we're going to focus on reason number 3 why we feel majority of businesses fail, and that is funding, cash, money. And this is definitely probably one of the predominant reasons why we see new businesses fail. I mean, obviously, you see existing businesses fail to that. I mean, there's no shortage of stories of bankruptcies and financial situations, and across the board, across various industries. But
hold on, an interesting thing. It just now occurred to me. I hate to interrupt, but we didn't plan this, but
sure.
What was the percentage of businesses that fail because of money?
16% of the startups, according to the stats.
That's really low.
Of the startups that fail, right? So,
yeah, so that means
cash flow problems.
Yeah, so the majority of businesses do not fail because of money. That's interesting.
That is interesting.
Yeah, that's a real. You would think that most businesses actually fail because of they ran out of money, but that puts more value on the 2 previous things that we talked about, that they fail because of those things more than money even.
Well, and I would be interested. I question that statistic because it's pretty broad brush, right? I think that if you are a startup and you've got venture capital, or you're working with an incubator like Y Combinator, and you're kind of like big leagues, right? And you've raised who knows how many millions of dollars for your business, and you're out there, you could probably fail because of bad positioning, bad product, bad quality. It wasn't money, right? You had to kind of just fold up and say this didn't work. I don't know that would be the same for kind of the smaller scale ventures, right?
True.
The kind of, mechanics, the mobile detailers, the accounting professionals, the solopreneurs, micropreneurs. I definitely think that it'd be interesting to see why a business at that level fails. But, I think you bring up a good point, right? Is you'd think money would be the reason, but yep, it indeed is, and I think for a lot of us who didn't get $100 million in revenue to start our own business, right, or in funding, I should say, it's chicken or the egg in business. It's I build a product or I build a service and I offer it, and I have to invest to do that, but I'm not getting revenue right away. Rarely can I get revenue ahead of time and then build my product or my offering or my value add after. So it's usually always this game of chicken or the egg. So anybody that's going into business, for the most part, needs to plan for a period of time where you have to be able to sustain the business expenses, website, marketing, tools, whatever you're doing, before you start seeing that revenue come in. And so this is a big challenge because you might not see that revenue, could be 6 months, could be some time. I mean, again, it depends. Or you might not get to the point where you're at break even or you're starting to actually turn a profit. So it's that time of period or the period of time in initial business phase that you're going through where this can definitely be a challenge. Now, there are ways to get your arms around the finances. and make sure that your business is financially sound, or that you can go over to, find additional funding. But I think, before we get into any of that, let's talk about the money. And I think, Trevor, you're going to share with us kind of step one in terms of what we need to do to make sure that funding doesn't kill the business.
Yep. So, to your point, you're going to talk about how to get funds and later in the show. And right now, the first step to how to get funds is how to not spend. And more often than not, businesses are started by someone who's doing a thing. It's something that's a side job, a side project, something they're doing. And at some point, it transitions into a more than a side hustle to a business. And the business starts to grow, and their money management ability does not grow proportionately with the money management. Typically, there usually has to be a problem, and then they go look for money management solutions. So if you've got a business, figure out where you're spending your money at today. And don't be complacent. If you have a supplier for a thing and it's been your supplier for the last 6 months and you're happy with that product, explore options. There may be and again, this is not to say that you should cut somebody off who's been taking care of you, but everybody's in business to make money. We just had a restaurant that was able to shave 12% off of their total food cost because the guy they've been doing business with, which was his friend. They were actual friends, but it was 12% higher. And when you're spending I think it was like $70,000 a month. I mean, that's 2 more employees that he just saved. Essentially, he can hire 2 more employees. I mean, so that's a substantial amount of money. And
it is.
All he had to do was make a phone call. But that's going to be different for every business. But the biggest thing is figuring out where your money's going, and you can't do that with finances mingled with personal finances. And I am absolutely guilty of this. I can't tell you how many years my marketing company operated with with multiple accounts, but I had a bank card for each one, and if I wanted to go buy something, or put gas in one of the cars or whatever, for my own personal stuff, I'd use the business account. And all I was doing is muddying up my finances.
I think you hit the nail on the head. And you, in a very nice way, kind of said, you suck at managing money. And it's not necessarily the case, but for the vast majority of us who are not in finance, right? I mean, even just managing our own personal budgets. I mean, at the end of the day, I think is like, there are learnings, and it is a skill. And so, and ultimately, what it is having the tools and the skill to categorize and track every expense down to, like, the bean counters, as they say, down to a T, right? Which is not something that, everybody does, or everybody has that skill right off the bat. So
there's 2 words that get us in trouble. It's just.
Yeah.
It's just $4. Well, if it's $4 twice a day, that's not an insignificant amount of money over the course of a year.
Yeah.
And now to get into personal, I mean, and we didn't plan on doing this, but personal finances. And this is a tangent a bit, and I'm sorry, but the other day, I don't drink soft drinks very often, but I was at the store. I wanted to get a Coke, or a 12-pack Coke, and it was like $9 for a 12-pack Coke. And I'm like, that seems high. So, and I didn't buy it. I was like, I don't want Coke that bad. I mean, I have money, but I just didn't want Coke bad enough to spend $9 on a 12-pack of Coke.
I don't blame you.
So, on the way back, I was talking with Liz, and I was like, there's people who drink Coke all day, every day. I wonder what they spend. So we came home, and me and her did a little math exercise of created some profiles for the average American, how much they drink, we created profiles that included energy drinks and coffee and beer. And anyways, some of those profiles, they're spending $6,000 a year on drinks. I mean, I compared it with her when she was just asking, what kind of, she's 10 years old. So she was asking, what kind of money that was. And I was like, because we're car people. So I was like, that's a C-Class Mercedes a year. You can lease a C-Class
Right.
for $6,500 a year. So, like, you could drink Coke and 2 Red Bulls a day or lease a C-Class Mercedes. And when you think about it in that context, the way we spend money is terrible. And there's a couple, there's a Josh Spreet, which is a financial guy. He is fantastic. I may link him in the description.
Yeah, maybe we can put a link on the video.
Yeah, because he is
for listeners.
Amazing for how to track your money. But anyways, so figure out where your money's going, first off, and separate your accounts. Give yourself a paycheck for one thing, and allocate yourself certain money. And whether that's fluid or not, that may, and in the early days of business, that may change, but don't spend out of the business account for personal stuff. And then that will give you some polarity on where your business money is going. Because if every time you have to take $1,000 out of the business to fund yourself, if you have to manually do that transfer yourself, then you're able to see at the end of the month, wow, I had to spend $14,000 to myself this month. Why? What did I do with 14 grand?
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the things I learned to do in business, and I learned from other leadership, was when we would look at, let's say, a budget for an operation call center, which is what my area is. We looked at technology costs, licenses costs, and so something as much as like $5 a day, right? What we would do is we would annualize it. So $5 a day, Monday through Friday, is $25 a week times 52 weeks a year. Now you're talking $1,500, $1,300 a year, some change. It doesn't seem like a lot, but then when you annualize stuff, it kind of like, wow, wait a second, like this is actually, you don't think of it, right, as kind of like it sneaks under the radar. So definitely I share, everything that you described I experienced in the beginning. When I started doing consulting, which was my first step into entrepreneurship, I certainly learned the hard way that the intermingling of business and personal costs, not only does it make it more difficult for you to really actually manage your business, but you will lose opportunities when it comes to taxes. And we haven't talked about taxes yet, but that's a whole other podcast on the IRS and being in business for yourself. So definitely clean books, and I am talking absolutely OCD tracking of every expense. And I think, I won't steal Trevor's thunder yet. I think we are going to have an action item that I think is going to be helpful. But again, I think you hit the nail on the head is you really, really got to find ways to manage your existing finances. And there's tons of tools out there that can do that for you. QuickBooks, Simplify, things, Excel spreadsheets, resources on how you better do that. But yeah, tracking every expense in your business is do that before you even think about trying to get additional money from anybody.
And to that, I don't care if you're not technical. If you're watching this and going, well, I'm not very technical. For hundreds of years, people wrote down transactional data. It worked.
Yeah.
It's called a ledger. You get down, you write down where your money went. We use computers today because there's some ease to it, but a ledger, a simple ledger would be huge. All right, now let's talk about how you get money, and that's going to be for you, Leo.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And so at this point, this is when you find yourself in a situation, which has happened to me before, where you need some capital. Either you're starting to run out of funds and you still don't have the revenue you need, or you're in a situation which has actually happened to me and what can happen to anybody, where a new client approaches you or a new opportunity, and in order for you to bring in revenue from that new opportunity, you've got to invest in people or in tools or in whatever, you need to do in order to get that revenue. But you're back at the chicken or the egg. It's like, obviously I can't invest in X to get the money because I just don't have that kind of cash flow right now. And so I think the way to get around that, of course, is raising funds from your business. And there's a variety of ways to do that. Let's talk about some of the ways that you can do that. So number one, before you look at anything else, look at your friends and family or your network, your professional network. And I know this kind of gets awkward, but look for opportunities where maybe someone is interested in a loan or even, investing in the business for a return. And I think that, there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you say, listen, if I get this, $1,000 loan, I can get you $1,100 in 2 months. Whatever you think it might take to make it more enticing, that is always going to be, or have more. You'll always have more flexibility with that type of investment or type of loans than with anything else. So friends and family trying to kind of do some grassroots donations, that kind of stuff. Speaking of donations, believe it or not, there's actually crowdfunding. If you've ever heard of crowdfunding, there's actually sites out there where you can raise money for your business. I mean, and I think one of the most popular crowdfunding apps that's out there that we see is GoFundMe, but there's others out there, some that are more business oriented. For those of you in nonprofit or those of you that are doing more kind of altruistic, or charitable work or some, that puts back into the community, there's a lot of options for that. So crowdfunding can be something to look into. Besides that, yes, there's business credit cards, there's lines of credit that you can look at. But the challenge, of course, then becomes some of the banks are going to want to see revenue. And if you don't have a lot of revenue or don't have a lot of business history or you don't have the strongest credit, that could definitely be a challenge. Lastly, this is something that is I think a lot of us don't take advantage of. And that's the SBA, the United States Small Business Administration. The SBA.gov website, tons of resources, tons of resources to help small businesses, tons of programs out there, federal and state level. But the hallmark of getting money from the SBA is their business loans. And there are a few options to getting business loans through SBA. Most of the time it's actually working with a bank or financial entity, but they will actually execute on the SBA program for you. There's a variety of loan opportunities there to look at. So, and that could be an opportunity to help get you through maybe the next 30, 60 days or to get some initial seed funding as well. And last but not least, there is venture capital. Lot of that out there right now. Depending on the type of business you're trying to create or promote, depending on your idea, you could look to see in your local community, state, or in the area that you're in, whether it's technology, software, whatever your business type, e-commerce, looking for companies that invest in your type of business. And so that could definitely be a viable option. At the end of the day, though, one word of caution is for any of these options, you're going to have to be able to show them, here is my current business financial situation, here is what I project, and here is what I need so that the business can be successful and how I can repay. And you can't do any of that until you do step one, going back to Trevor, which is like, know what you're spending, your money on today and making sure that you are OCD level managing every single dime that basically you spend or on your business. And so that's number one. So yeah, I mean, I think in a nutshell, the options are out there. You kind of have to look at what's best for you. Sometimes it's a combination of a few of these different options. So, but get out there and look. There's even grants that are out there for women in business, minorities in business, or there's regions that they're trying to promote business. Check with your local chamber of commerce. Check on the SBA. There's
I'll
definitely
interject here
opportunities.
For a second. There's historical too. If you can position your business into a historical piece of property, there are some states that have grants for putting that piece of that building back into work.
That is cool. I did not know that.
Yep, I've actually. That's when we had this discussion, and I'm not trying to be a contrarian, but I don't see a lot of people get funding. For me, in my experience, it's one of those things where if you really, really need funding, it's really, really hard to get. But I have seen the building thing work quite often, where if you agree to rehab a building and employ 12 people, then they'll allocate, the state will pay to remodel the building and then allocate you tax rebates and so forth for your employees. I've seen that on a couple of occasions, actually in this very town.
Yeah, I think if I were to say in order of likelihood that you could get some kind of funding, friends and family might be debatable, but I mean, always start there with friends, family, and community or network, right, is the first place to start. It's the lowest risk, and there's definitely opportunity there. Crowdfunding can be an option, again, particularly if your business is doing something more altruistic or contributing to the community. But the traditional business loans or business credit cards or lines of credit usually is the next place to start. And, even some of the, like QuickBooks, for those of you who use QuickBooks Online or use any types of those software, they oftentimes even have capital offering or, business loan offerings or lines of credits offering that there's actually built in. And since they have all your business financials already, they can approve you far faster than anybody else. So no shortage of companies that are there that will loan businesses capital. But again, you need to see what's right for your business. And yeah, I think, lastly, looking into the SBA or grants or other types of things, could also be an alternative. So you kind of have to see which one of those is going to work best for your business. So I think with that said, I'll hand it back over to Trevor.
I got one question for you.
Yeah.
What's your view on, and I know that I because I don't know a ton about the SBA stuff, I see, as I scroll Instagram and I scroll LinkedIn, I see these agents that handle, that essentially promise to help you obtain these. In your experience, do you advise people to go that path to not hire, but I don't know if they're on a consignment type situation or you pay them up front or what, but in your experience, do you say people go that route, or do they learn it themselves and go after it?
I feel that one of the, as a business owner, right, especially for smaller scale, there's a lot involved. Anything you can do that lets you focus on the work that you're trying to do and to let you focus on managing your business is best done by letting the pros do it. I would highly recommend doing a little bit of research for SBA loans. There are companies that you can find online. I would say work with a company firm or established financial institution. Most financial institutions do work on SBA loans on your behalf. I would say that would probably be the way to go rather than trying to do it all yourself. And I believe that for the most part, when you're trying to get an SBA loan, That's usually the best way, I would say. So, if you're not sure, I can give you a couple of recommendations. There's some great kind of meta websites out there that allow you to evaluate different types of lenders, or doing this kind of lender matching. Not only does the SBA have a lender match program, but you can go to nerdwallet.com where you can apply for an SBA loan. There's, Lendio, Fundera. So there's a variety. I would, again, recommend going to an agency or financial institution more established than an individual who says, hey, yeah, I'll get you grants. I'll get you loans for your business. Like, most of the time, it's too good to be true.
Got you. So professional, but perhaps not the Instagram professional.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Good deal. Well, to wrap up today's episode, we'll go to the action item. And today's action item is, for the next 30 days, track what you spend. I'm going to take a very simple Google sheet, and it's actually the sheet that I use to track everything. Like, I have subsystems, like our invoicing software and stuff, but I have that Excel sheet that I've used for many years that tracks all the ins and all the out. And I'm going to link it to it'll be on the website under the resources tab. And so use that sheet when you stop at a store in the morning and you buy you got a truckload of guys that you're going out to a job site with, and you buy everybody breakfast and drinks, and you spent $34. You put $34 down and put that you bought breakfast. And then the next, I'm talking, you track every dollar. And so at the top of the sheet, there's a starting balance. If you do operate in cash, there's actually there's not a cash field, but I'll throw a cash field in there and just track that. Where your money's going. If you are tracking your finances, and to some extent, and you do use a credit card or a bank card for every transaction, then don't worry about doing the next 30. Look at the last 30 and go through your bank balances and your bank account and see where every dollar went. So this is a two-part deal. If you are cash, personal finances mixed in with your business finances, do the sheet and start tracking everything. If you have some things in order, then just do a past 30-day audit, and then let us know what you discover about your business and what is your biggest thing that surprises you. What thing is your business spending the most money on that you did not realize?
Yeah, definitely agree. So the action item is this 30-day audit, essentially, of kind of, every penny, where did it go? You should be able to easily download the transactions onto Excel or into a sheet of some sort where you can look at it. However you do it, whether it's online printouts or if you use Trevor's sheet, the goal of this action item is to take a snapshot of where your money's going. And I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, you're going to find something that can be cut. It's almost guaranteed. Unless you're lucky enough. And I've done this periodically with my business, and even with Calltastic or even as a consultant, I would find, I've got a software subscription. I'm not using that anymore, and it's like $4 or $5, and I'm not paying attention to it. Or the amount of I'll give you a great example. I'm like, why am I paying 20 something for my Google, domain and email? And I ended up going in and looking, and I had 2 accounts, Hello at Rise, which was my consulting, and then I had Leo at Rise. I ended up killing the Hello and just made an alias of Hello at Rise Global Solutions with Leo, and I was done. And I cut my expense in half. Now, okay, big deal. This is $20, whatever, right? It doesn't seem like a big deal. It adds up.
It goes back to the two most dangerous words. It's just.
is just absolutely 100%. So great. And so, Trevor, you wanna wrap us up then for the episode?
Sure. So you guys have the action item. Go to the website, theactionitempodcast.com. If you have questions about this episode, there's a question section. Submit them. I do apologize. We do have quite a few questions from the last 2 episodes. It's been a crazy week. I'm going to go through those. Maybe we'll do a question episode in the next couple ones to touch on some of those questions. I don't know how many there are. I've seen them come in. But we appreciate everybody for watching, and we genuinely appreciate you guys sharing the content. And this is our 3rd episode. And I think we're topping like 15,000, 16,000 views so far. So that's absolutely...
That's amazing.
Yeah,
Thank you so much for your support. Absolutely. And we're thrilled to have you watching and listening. And so great with that.
And we hope we add some value.
Definitely. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.